Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life. And once again, this is the US cellular coverage map, so you guys can get an idea of where that coverage exists today. Verizon also got a good chunk of spectrum out of this T-Mobile deal, right? It was the T-Mobile deal. T-Mobile pays the most. They get the biggest chunk. They get the towers. They get the customers at the $4.4 billion. Verizon quietly is getting more and much needed low band. So in this footprint that you see on screen, Verizon's getting a good amount of 850, which is band 5, which, as most of you know, is much needed for Verizon. Now, of course, would we have liked Verizon to get that at a more bigger scale? Of course, but they're still getting some much needed low band out of this. And I feel for the transaction itself and what Verizon is getting, I feel for them that's the biggest part of the deal, is that low band that they're getting inside of these markets, right? For NR purposes, SA, voice over NR, that 850 is going to play a big factor. Now, do I believe that Verizon is going to use that 850 on NR right away? Strong possibility that happens. So then again, you want to have, just like with what we talked about with T-Mobile a few years ago, once they started moving SA, they moved PCS and everything else, right? It was very important to have a 5G device, right? Especially a device that can do SA and take advantage of all the spectrum that's in use today. And I'll say that now for Verizon too. Verizon, it wasn't like super critical at the very beginning. For those of you who remember, Verizon was still moving CBRS to LTE. They still had great performance on LTE. But slowly but surely, as they get, like in this case, more 850, they moved that to NR. They moved some other spectrum. I'm seeing now PCS is starting to get moved. They're moving AWS to NR, right? At some point, it's going to be beneficial to have a 5G device. So for those of you who still have LTE only devices, it might be time, slowly but surely, to start to look into getting a 5G device. So Verizon is going to be much better across this footprint you see on screen. 850 inbound. Shouldn't take long for Verizon to get that in motion, and should be a better experience, right? Are there going to be some sites across this footprint that probably will need to be upgraded to that radio? It's possible. I know Verizon still has a good chunk of good amount of band 13 only sites out there that need to be upgraded, so be on the lookout for that. But Verizon is investing the right amount, right? Verizon is still, even though now they're getting into Frontier, they're doing the Fios thing, Verizon is still focused on wireless, right? They still have more focus on the wireless side. Now, is it maybe as much focus as once? No, right? Because now there's Frontier, you got to get that going, integrate, you got to close that. So that's, of course, going to take some resources. But wireless is still a big player in the playbook for Verizon, right? So just be on the lookout for Verizon to get better across this footprint. 850 is very critical. Do they need more 850 at a larger scale? Of course, that's always the case. Band 13 is still a heavily used LTE band, so it's hard to really move that to NR, right? So 850, much needed. Let me know your thoughts on this in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. See you in the next one. Peace.